Did you know Paul Dini, the Emmy-winning writer famous for Batman, the animated series, was the primary architect of the narrative for both Batman Arkham Asylum and Batman Arkham City? His involvement was a deliberate move by DC Comics and Rocksteady Studios to create an original Batman story that felt like a feature film experience rather than a typical movie tie-in. Dini worked closely with Rocksteady's head of story, Paul Crocker, to blend complex comic book lore with the practical demands of video game mechanics. For Arkham City, Dini's scripting process was highly collaborative and iterative. He would typically write a narrative treatment, which the design team in London would then break down into specific gameplay scenes. Because games require multiple outcomes for player actions, Dini often had to write short dialogue snippets like "It's the Bat" and dozens of variations for the same scene to ensure the world felt reactive and alive. He noted that writing for a game was like writing the same movie about 12 times, because every possible player loop had to be scripted and accounted for in the dialogue. Now, Dini was instrumental in pushing the game's darker tone, which he compared to the grim atmosphere of the film Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. Beyond the main script, he also wrote a 5-issue prequel comic miniseries that bridged the gap between the two games, explaining how Hugo Strange rose to power and how the prison was constructed. His deep knowledge of the characters allowed for a massive ensemble cast, where every villain stayed true to their established personality while fitting into the new, gritty Arkhamverse. Despite his success with the first two entries, Dini did not return for the final game, Arkham Knight, as Rocksteady transitioned to an in-house writing team led by Sefton Hill. The most noticeable change for me in Batman Arkham City was the environment. It was grittier, darker, and more brutal. The late Kevin Conroy, who voiced Batman for nearly 30 years, frequently highlighted the tonal shift between Arkham Asylum and Arkham City during the game's promotional cycle. He specifically compared the atmosphere of Arkham City to the feature film Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, which is widely considered one of the darkest entries in the DC animated canon due to its themes of torture, psychological trauma, and the brutal death of the Joker. Conroy noted that while the first game was a contained thriller set within a psychiatric facility, the sequel felt like a war zone, where the stakes were life or death for the entire city of Gotham, moving away from the comic booky feel toward a gritty, mature noir. This darker tone is woven into the game's narrative through the introduction of Protocol 10, a plot point where Hugo Strange authorizes the mass slaughter of thousands of inmates via missile strikes. Conroy's performance reflected this shift. His Batman in Arkham City is notably more aggressive and desperate, particularly as he suffers from the Titan-poisoned blood transfusion forced upon him by the Joker. The script required Conroy to portray a physically failing Batman who's forced to watch allies like Talia al Ghul die, adding a layer of personal tragedy that was absent from the more heroic first game. The Return of the Joker comparison is also evident in the game's ending, which remains one of the most somber moments in superhero media. Unlike the first game, which ended with a typical boss fight and a sense of victory, Arkham City concludes with the death of the Joker and Batman silently carrying his rival's body out of the prison while the song Only You plays over the credits. This echoed the mature storytelling of the animated films Conroy referenced, where victories are often hollow and come at a high moral or personal cost. Conroy stated in interviews that the script's willingness to go there with the death of a primary antagonist was what set the game apart from standard superhero fare. We all love to play as Nightwing in Batman Arkham City, but did you know that he had an extended role in the game? The speculation surrounding Nightwing's expanded role in Batman Arkham City is grounded in technical leftovers discovered by the modding community and details in the game's official credits. While Nightwing, aka Dick Grayson, was eventually released as a purely mechanical DLC character for challenge maps, several indicators suggest that Rocksteady Studios initially planned for him to have a presence within the main narrative, or as an early game playable asset similar to Catwoman. The most concrete evidence lies within the game's audio files and credits. Nightwing is officially voiced by Quentin Flynn. Despite being credited, the character has 0 lines of dialogue in the final game. Even his grunts and combat sounds during gameplay are recycled from Robin's voice actor, Troy Baker. The fact that a specific, high-profile voice actor was cast and credited for a role that ended up silent strongly implies that a scripted interaction or a cutscene involving Nightwing was written and potentially even recorded before being scrapped late in development. Furthermore, unused most character trophies tucked away in the game's internal files hint at a more robust character management system, while the final DLC restricted Nightwing to the Wayne Manor and Main Hall challenge maps. Modders have revealed that his character model and movement mechanics are surprisingly compatible with the open-world map of Arkham City. Unlike Robin, who appears in a brief story cutscene to deliver the line launcher to Batman, Nightwing's lack of even a cameo was a point of contention for fans, especially given that the lore establishes he was active during the incident, defending Wayne Manor from Tiger Guards during Protocol 10. According to the official Arkham City lore, Nightwing's absence from the prison was explained away by his duty to protect Gotham and Bloodhaven while Batman was incarcerated. However, the presence of his unique gadgets, like the Eskrima sticks and wrist darts, suggests a level of development polish that often precedes a character's integration into broader story missions. The decision to limit him to DLC was likely a result of production timelines and the focus on the Catwoman parallel story, leaving Nightwing as one of the most prominent what-ifs in the game's development history. Have you ever wondered how a game would look if all the characters in it were like bobbleheads? Well, something like that can be done in Batman Arkham City too. The Big Head mode in Batman Arkham City is one of the most famous old-school style cheats included by Rocksteady Studios as a nod to the era of 90s gaming. Unlike modern games, where such modifiers are often locked behind paid DLC or menu toggles, this mode is activated via a specific button sequence that must be performed while using Batman's cryptographic sequencer or on certain menu screens, depending on the platform. To trigger it during gameplay, the player must hold down the left trigger, L2 or LT, and right trigger, R2 or RT, simultaneously, then rotate the right analog stick clockwise and the left analog stick counterclockwise, repeatedly until the transformation occurs. Once successfully activated, the effect is immediate and global. Every character model in the game, including Batman, Catwoman, Robin, Nightwing, and every single henchman or civilian, will have their heads scaled up to an exaggerated, comical size. This change is purely aesthetic and doesn't alter the hitboxes of the characters, meaning you can't score easier headshots with the remote electric charge or batarangs just because the head appears larger. The detail in this mode is surprisingly thorough, as even the masks and headgear of villains like the Scarecrow, Penguin, and the Joker are scaled up proportionally. If you activate the mode while playing as Catwoman, her goggles and cowl will also be oversized, and the same applies to Robin's hood. Because the game engine handles the scaling dynamically, the big head effect persists through real-time in-game cutscenes, often leading to unintentionally hilarious moments during serious story beats, such as the dramatic confrontation with Ra's al Ghul or the Joker's final monologue. This cheat remains one of the few interactive secrets that survived through the Return to Arkham Remastered collection on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. While it serves no tactical purpose in the dark, gritty world of Arkham City, it remains a fan-favorite Easter egg that highlights the developer's sense of humor. It can be deactivated by performing the same analog stick rotation sequence again, returning all character models to their original, anatomically correct proportions. The transition from the linear, gothic corridors of Arkham Asylum to the sprawling, urban nightmare of Arkham City represented a massive technical and design leap for Rocksteady Studios. Director Sefton Hill confirmed during the game's marketing cycle that the playable area of the sequel is roughly 5 times larger than the island of the first game. This expansion was necessary to shift the gameplay loop from a style where players backtrack through a single building to a true open-world experience. The map is divided into distinct thematic districts, such as the flooded amusement mile, the industrial Bowery, and the decaying Park Row, each containing its own unique architectural style and enemy factions. You see, to accommodate this 5-fold increase in scale, the developers had to completely change how Batman moved, or, in more nerdy words, change his traversal mechanics. In the first game, the grapnel gun was primarily used for vertical movement to reach gargoyles or vents. In Arkham City, the map's size demanded horizontal speed, leading to the creation of the grapnel boost and an expanded glide system. One very cool new feature was that the players can now dive bomb to gain kinetic energy and then pull up into a steep climb, allowing Batman to stay airborne indefinitely across the city's skyline. This mechanical change was a direct response to the map's expansion. Without it, crossing from the GCP GCPD building to the steel mill would have been a tedious trek rather than a fast-paced aerial pursuit. The increased scale also allowed for a more organic approach to story and side content. Instead of a singular path, the larger map featured 440 Riddler trophies and challenges scattered throughout the environment, many of which are hidden behind destructible walls or require complex gadget chains. The scale isn't just surface level either. The map features significant verticality and subterranean layers. The Wonder City ruins, located directly beneath Arkham City, add an entirely different mechanical layer to the map, effectively doubling the complexity of certain districts by stacking playable environments on top of one another. This vertical design ensured that while the map was 5 times larger in square footage, it felt even more dense in terms of actual content. Technically, managing a world of this size on 2011 hardware like the PS3 or Xbox 360 required a seamless loading system. Unlike the first game, which had frequent loading screens when entering different wings of the asylum, Arkham City allows players to glide across the entire exterior map without a single pause. The game utilizes level streaming to load assets in the direction Batman's facing, while unloading the areas behind him. This technical feat was one of the most praised aspects of the game's development, as it maintained the immersion of being trapped within a massive, lawless prison city, where every alleyway and rooftop could potentially hold a secret or a sniper. Did you know that there are 2 different endings in the Catwoman DLC chapters? It's true. This occurs during her 3rd playable segment, titled The Getaway, which takes place inside Hugo Strange's confiscated goods vault. After infiltrating the vault and defeating the Tiger Guards, Selina Kyle successfully retrieves her 2 stolen loot cases. At this moment, the game presents the player with a literal fork in the road. To the right is the exit leading to the safety of Gotham City, the choice of greed, and to the left is the path back into the heart of the prison to help a critically injured Batman who has been pinned under rubble following the explosion at the steel mill. If the player chooses to walk to the right and exit through the large security doors, the game triggers a fake ending that deviates from the official DC canon. As Catwoman walks away into the night with her bags of jewels, she provides a cynical voiceover stating, "Screw him." The screen fades to black, but instead of the usual loading screen, the player hears a desperate, static-filled radio transmission from Oracle, aka Barbara Gordon. Over the police frequency, Oracle is heard screaming for Batman to respond, followed by the chilling news that the Joker and his goons have breached the GCPD or the Wayne medical bunkers, and that Batman has died because no one was there to pull him from the wreckage. This sequence concludes with a twist. The Joker's Protocol 10 and the subsequent chaos have successfully destroyed Gotham. After a few moments of this audio, the game world literally rewinds like a VHS tape, complete with visual distortion and backwards playing audio, taking the player back to the moment of choice inside the vault. The player is then forced to turn around and take the left path to save Batman, which is the only way to progress the story towards the true finale. This creative what-if scenario was designed by Rocksteady to highlight the moral complexity of Catwoman's character and to emphasize that Batman's survival throughout the night was entirely dependent on his shaky alliance with Selina. If you knew about this alternate ending, tell us which path you chose in the comments. Most of you might not know this, but the existence of a Talia al Ghul Clayface variant is one of the most fascinating discoveries made by the Arkham City modding and data mining community. In the game's internal files, specifically within the character model archives, there's a distinct entry for a model that combines the skeletal structure and mud textures of Basil Karlo, aka Clayface, with the character model of Talia al Ghul. This was not merely a cosmetic skin, but a functional asset intended for a specific narrative beat. The Clay Talia model features the physical appearance of Talia, but with the characteristic shimmering, vicious clay shader applied to her skin, indicating a transformation in progress or a botched shape-shifting attempt. This cut content provides significant insight into how the Monarch Theatre finale was originally storyboarded. In the final version of the game, the twist is that the healthy Joker Batman has been chasing is actually Clayface in disguise. However, the presence of the Talia Clayface assets suggests a more complex double-blind scenario was considered. One prevalent theory supported by the file structure is that Clayface might have been intended to pose as Talia to manipulate Batman's emotions further, or that a sequence was planned where Talia herself was revealed to be a clay construction to explain her sudden appearance in the theatre. The model even includes specific animations where the Talia facade begins to melt away, revealing the monstrous form of Karlo underneath, a sequence that would have mirrored the Joker's transformation during the final boss fight. Beyond the models, there are unused voice lines and script fragments in the game's code that hint at this scrapped plot point. These snippets suggest a moment where Batman would have been forced to distinguish between the real Talia and a clay imposter, a classic trope from the Batman, the animated series episode Mudslide, which also featured Clayface. Ultimately, Rocksteady likely cut this specific transformation to keep the focus on the Joker or Clayface twist, as having two different characters turn out to be the same shapeshifter in the same room might have overcomplicated the climax. The assets remain in the game's cooked PC files, allowing players with specialized viewing tools to see exactly how Talia would have looked as she dissolved into a pile of sentient mud. Did you know Batman Arkham City got its own spin-off mobile game? Yeah, Batman Arkham City Lockdown was a high-profile mobile brawler developed by NetherRealm, the creators of Mortal Kombat, and published by Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment. Released for iOS on December 7, 2011, and later for Android in 2013, it was the first mobile entry in the Arkham franchise. Unlike the open-world exploration of the main console game, Lockdown utilized the Unreal Engine 3 to deliver a series of one-on-one combat encounters. The gameplay was heavily inspired by the Infinity Blade style, where players used touchscreen gestures, swiping left or right to punch, tapping to dodge, and swiping up to parry, to defeat waves of thugs and iconic villains. Chronologically, the game serves as a direct prequel to the events of Batman Arkham City. Set a few weeks before the prison's official opening, the plot follows Batman as he hunts down several high-profile inmates, including the Joker, Two-Face, Solomon Grundy, and Poison Ivy, who have escaped from Arkham Asylum and are causing chaos in the streets of Gotham. This timeframe explains Mayor Quincy Sharp's increasing desperation to finalize his Arkham City project to contain the escalating violence. Notably, the game featured the Arkhamverse debut of Deathstroke, aka Slade Wilson, who was hired to assassinate Batman, appearing here well before his more prominent roles in Arkham Origins and Arkham Knight. The production value of Lockdown was unusually high for a mobile title at this time, featuring reprising voice actors from the main series. Kevin Conroy returned as Batman, and Mark Hamill voiced the Joker, alongside other veteran cast members like Tara Strong as Harley Quinn and Troy Baker as Two-Face. Between fights, players could earn experience points to upgrade Batman's physical stats or unlock a variety of gadgets such as smoke pellets, electric gauntlets, and bat swarms. The game also allowed players to swap Batman's appearance using various skins, with the 1970s Batsuit being a free default option. Although the game was eventually removed from app stores, it remains a critical piece of lore that bridged the gap between the asylum and the city. The Easter egg we're about to discuss now is a little tricky, because when I found out about it, first I was like, what? But then I was like, oh, why do I say it like this? Well, the Harley Quinn pregnancy subplot is one of the most famous environmental storytelling arcs in the Batman Arkham series, beginning as a shocking teaser in the base game and concluding with a definitive debunking in the DLC. In the main story of Batman Arkham City, players can find a positive pregnancy test on the floor of the manager's office in the steel mill. The test is located right next to Harley's original nurse-style costume from Arkham Asylum, which is displayed on a mannequin. When Batman approaches the test, it displays a clear positive indicator. Additionally, if the player listens close to the background audio in the steel mill, they can hear a faint, distorted version of Harley Quinn singing a lullaby, specifically a macabre rendition of Hush Little Baby, which heavily implied at the time that she was carrying the Joker's child. This plot point was a massive source of fan speculation until the release of Harley Quinn's Revenge DLC, which takes place 2 weeks after the Joker's death. During this expansion, Batman and later Robin return to the steel mill, which Harley is converted into a shrine for her fallen puddin'. In the same office where the original test was found, the environment has changed significantly. Scattered across the floor and on a nearby table are dozens of negative pregnancy tests. More importantly, a large cardboard box for the pregnancy tests is visible, featuring a prominent legal disclaimer that reads, "Note, may result in a false positive." This was Rocksteady's explicit way of confirming that Harley was never actually pregnant and that the initial positive result was a statistical anomaly, or a result of the chemical-heavy environment of the Sionis steel mill. The inclusion of this false positive detail served a specific narrative purpose, to showcase Harley's deteriorating mental state following the Joker's demise. The presence of so many discarded tests suggests she was obsessively retesting herself, hoping for a connection to the Joker that no longer existed. This transition from the lullaby Easter egg in the credits of New Game Plus to the discovery of the negative tests in the DLC highlights the tragic, delusional nature of Harley's grief. Furthermore, the Harley Quinn's Revenge Trophy achievement list includes an icon of a baby's rattle with a Joker face, serving as a final, grim nod to the phantom pregnancy that never came to be. Some of you might have missed this Easter egg because the Killer Croc cameo in Batman Arkham City is one of the most specific and easily missed Easter eggs in the game, requiring the player to be in a precise location at a precise moment in the story. To trigger this encounter, Batman must have just finished the trial of the demon and defeated Ra's al Ghul in the subterranean Wonder City. As you make your way back through the subway tunnels toward the surface, you must navigate to a collapsed junction near the Industrial District exit. In this area, there's a heavy iron gate blocking a sewer pipe. Behind this gate is a remote-controlled button or junction box. If you throw a batarang through the bars to hit the switch, a cinematic camera cut triggers, showing the massive, mutated form of Waylon Jones, also known as Killer Croc, bursting through the brickwork behind the bars. The interaction is brief, but intense, as Croc lunges towards the bars, snarling at Batman. He acknowledges their previous encounter at Arkham Asylum, noting that Batman smells of death and won't last much longer, referring to the Titan poisoning currently ravaging Batman's body. Because of this, Croc decides not to fight Batman at that moment, stating that he doesn't need to kill him because the disease will do it for him. He then retreats back into the darkness of the sewers, and the gate remains locked, preventing any further combat. This cameo serves as a narrative bridge, showing that Croc survived the explosion at the end of the first game, where he was last seen grabbing a crate of Titan in the post-credits scene, and is now lurking in the flooded ruins beneath the new prison. From a technical standpoint, this Easter egg is time-sensitive. If you attempt to trigger the switch before the fight with Ra's al Ghul, or too long after exiting the subway, Croc will not appear. The character model used for Croc in this scene is a significantly updated version of his Arkham Asylum appearance, showing more pronounced reptilian scales and tattered remains of his prison shackles. Interestingly, if the player uses detective vision during the encounter, they can see that Croc's heart rate is incredibly low, reflecting his cold-blooded physiology. This encounter is also tied to a specific riddle in the area, as scanning the gate after he disappears often provides the solution to a nearby challenge. Arkham Asylum achieved the world record, but Arkham City didn't disappoint either. The critical reception of Batman Arkham City upon its release in October 2011 was historic, placing it at the absolute pinnacle of the gaming industry for that year. On the review aggregator Metacritic, the PlayStation 3 version of the game earned a staggering 96 of 100, while the Xbox 360 version sat at a 94. This score officially tied Arkham City with Bethesda's The Elder Scrolls Skyrim as the highest rated game of 2011 across all platforms. This achievement was particularly significant because 2011 is widely considered one of the most competitive years in gaming history, featuring other heavy-hitting titles like Portal 2, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, and Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception. The game's metascore was bolstered by a wave of perfect 10 out of 10 reviews from major outlets such as IGN, Game Informer, and Eurogamer. Critics specifically praised the perfect expansion of the free-flow combat system and the seamless transition from the linear halls of the first game to the open-air prison of the sequel. The narrative, written by Paul Dini, was frequently cited as the greatest Batman story ever told in a digital medium, with many reviewers noting that the ending of the game was a bold, artistic risk that paid off. The game didn't just succeed commercially, it redefined the superhero genre in gaming, proving that licensed titles could compete with and even outperform original AAA intellectual properties. Beyond just the score tied with Skyrim, Arkham City dominated the 2011 Spike Video Game Awards, the predecessor to the Game Awards. It won Best Action Adventure Game and Best Adapted Video Game, while the Joker, voiced by Mark Hamill, was named Character of the Year. The Metacritic success of the game served as the ultimate validation for Rocksteady Studios, transforming them from a relatively small UK developer into a world-class powerhouse. To this day, the 96 Metascore remains the highest rating any Batman game has ever achieved, and it's frequently cited in retrospectives as one of the most complete sequels ever made in terms of improving every single mechanic of its predecessor. While playing the game, I noticed that Azrael can be spotted watching Batman from rooftops throughout the city. Finding him multiple times triggers a prophecy side mission titled Watcher in the Wings, and it was one of the most mysterious and crazy subplots in Batman Arkham City. It features features the character Michael Lane, the second individual to take up the mantle of Azrael in the DC Comics continuity. Unlike most side missions that are marked on the map or triggered by radio transmissions, this mission requires the player to manually spot a silent, hooded figure standing motionless on various rooftops throughout the prison. Azrael does not attack, he simply watches Batman from a distance. If the player approaches him, he vanishes in a cloud of smoke, leaving behind a glowing circular symbol on the ground that Batman must scan using detective vision. To complete the mission, Batman must find Azrael in 4 specific locations across Arkham City in a non-linear order, though they typically trigger as the main story progresses. The first location is on a rooftop directly overlooking the interrogation of Jack Ryder at the very beginning of the game. The second is in the amusement mile, standing on a building near the GCPD parking lot. The third is in the industrial district, perched on top of a high crane, or a nearby rooftop overlooking the Sionis steel mill. The fourth is in the Bowery, on a roof near the museum. Each time Batman scans a new symbol, a piece of a larger map is revealed in his database. Once all 4 symbols are collected, they overlap to form a final sigil that reveals Azrael's 5th and final location, on a wall near the cathedral. Upon reaching the final location and scanning the completed sigil, Azrael finally confronts Batman face to face. He delivers a chilling, cryptic prophecy that serves as a direct foreshadowing of the events in the sequel, Batman Arkham Knight. Azrael warns Batman that dark days are coming, stating that Batman is the warrior who will close the gates of hell, and that from the ashes of Arkham, the fires will rage and Gotham will burn. He also specifically mentions that Batman himself will burn along with the city. This dialogue was a deliberate long-game plant by Rocksteady Studios, as the imagery of a burning Gotham and Batman's ultimate sacrifice became the central themes of the 3rd game in the trilogy. Azrael's presence in Arkham City is not to help Batman, but to judge him and prepare him for the end times. This mission is highly praised by fans for its creep factor, as players often report the unsettling feeling of being watched by a red-eyed figure throughout their playthrough, before they even realize a side mission has begun. Batman Arkham City has one of the most distinctive cut content items in the Arkham series, including the playable Joker. The discovery of playable Joker data within the game files of Batman Arkham City is one of the most well-documented instances of cut content in the series. While the Joker was a PlayStation exclusive playable character in Arkham Asylum, he's purely an NPC in the sequel. However, data miners examining the PC version's bmgame.ini and internal package files discovered a directory structure labeled playable_Joker alongside the finalized folders for Batman, Catwoman, and Robin. This folder contains specific code references for a player controller class specifically assigned to the Joker's character model, indicating that at some point during development, the engine was being configured to allow a player to take direct control of the Clown Prince of Crime. Technical analysis of the .upk Unreal package files revealed that this playable version of the Joker was intended to have a unique set of gadgets and combat animations distinct from his Arkham Asylum iteration. The code points to a more free-flow compatible version of the character, with text strings referencing Joker's specific beatdowns and aerial attacks. In the final game, the Joker's combat AI is relatively simple, but these hidden files suggest a much deeper mechanical build. There are also references to Joker medals for challenge maps, which would have required the players to perform specific tasks, such as using a joy buzzer or gas grenade to earn a free bat or free Joker rating, a system identical to how Catwoman and Robin function in the final release. Furthermore, the game's animation files contain skeleton data for a character of the Joker's height and gait performing stealth takedowns, such as ledge takedowns and corner takedowns. These animations are never used by the Joker as an NPC, as he's only seen in scripted cutscenes or sitting in a chair during his boss encounters. The presence of these Predator mode animations is a smoking gun for developers, as they serve no purpose for an AI-controlled boss. They're only necessary if the character is meant to navigate the stealth maps as a player. These files even include UI icons and HUD elements that would have displayed the Joker's health and gadget recharge rates, similar to the interface used for the DLC characters. The decision to cut the playable Joker likely stemmed from a combination of narrative and production constraints. With the inclusion of Catwoman as a major dual protagonist and the development of Robin and Nightwing as DLC, Rocksteady's resources were heavily taxed. Additionally, the story's focus on the Joker's physical decline and eventual death made a fun, playable version of him feel tonally inconsistent with the dark finality of the Arkham City script. While the character was ultimately removed, the groundwork laid in these Arkham City files was eventually utilized and expanded upon by Warner Bros. For the playable Joker sequences in the 2013 prequel, Batman Arkham Origins. Did you know that Warner Bros. Spent a whopping amount exceeding over $10 million on the game's massive marketing campaign? This was a significant increase over the budget for Arkham Asylum, reflecting the studio's confidence that the sequel would be a AAA blockbuster. The campaign was not just about television commercials. It was a multi-platform blitz that included high-end cinematic trailers, massive mural paintings in major cities like London and LA, and a heavy presence at global gaming conventions like E3 and Comic-Con. A centerpiece of this budget was the series of high-quality cinematic trailers produced by Blur Studios. The most famous of these was the Hugo Strange reveal trailer, which showcased a tactical Tiger Squad attempting to take down Batman. These trailers were aired during primetime television slots and in movie theaters, a rarity for gaming marketing at the time. Warner Bros. Also invested heavily in partnerships with major brands, like how they collaborated with Mountain Dew and Doritos for Double XP promotions, and the Gotham City flavor for The Dark Knight Rises and Arkham Knight. They also partnered with the UFC to feature the game during major fight broadcasts. This was part of a strategy to reach a demographic beyond hardcore gamers and appeal to the broader, M-rated action movie audience. The marketing budget also covered the production of a dedicated original soundtrack album titled Batman Arkham City. The album, Warner Bros. Paid for original songs from mainstream artists such as Panic at the Disco, Coheed and Cambria, and The Damned Things. This was a rare move for a licensed superhero game, intended to give the project the prestige of a major Hollywood production. Additionally, the budget supported a world tour for the developers, where Rocksteady's Sefton Hill and others traveled globally to demonstrate the game's new features, such as the open-world traversal and Catwoman's gameplay, ensuring constant media coverage for the 6 months leading up to the October release. Furthermore, a significant portion of the funds went into exclusive retail incentives and physical collector's editions. The Batman Arkham City Collector's Edition was a premium product that included a custom-produced Batman statue by Koto Bukiya, an art book, and early access to the Iceberg Lounge challenge map and the Batman, The Dark Knight Returns skin. Warner Bros. Used these high production value physical items to drive pre-order numbers, which were among the highest in the company's history. This aggressive spending paid off, as the game shipped over 4.6 million units in its first week alone, quickly recouping the marketing and development costs and solidifying the Arkham brand as a top-tier entertainment franchise. In Batman Arkham City, there's one conversation in particular where the villain directly references Lost, though it's something only viewers of the show's finale are likely to understand. In a conversation with Batman via a TV screen, the Joker says, "Well, here's the thing. Answers don't give you everlasting satisfaction. Sometimes you need to brace yourself for disappointment." No, think about it. Imagine your favorite TV show. You've been through it all. The ups, the downs, the crazy coincidences. And then bang, they tell you what it's all about. Would you be happy? Does it make sense? How come it all ended in a church? The scene takes place inside the steel mill. The second time the player enters it, the Joker appears on a monitor, looking healthier than the first time Batman saw him, and uses this moment to deflect Batman's questions about how he apparently recovered from his illness. The speech is framed as a meta-commentary. The Joker is essentially telling Batman and the audience not to demand answers, because answers are ultimately disappointing, which is a direct jab at the divisive reception of the Lost series finale. It's actually Clayface posing as the Joker who delivers this speech near the end of the game, though the reference to the Lost finale and its polarizing reception is intentional on the part of the writers when brushing aside how the Joker managed to recover from his illness. The crazy detail about this is that the church line is not random. Since airing its two-part finale in May 2010 on ABC, the polarizing ending of the landmark television series Lost has been a point of fierce contention among fans. For years, those who tuned in every week to check in with the survivors of Oceanic Flight 815 wrestled with the implications of the feature-length final episode, which was jam-packed with mind-bending twists and ambiguous answers that only seemed to set up more questions. The finale's single most talked about and debated scene takes place in a church. Once awakened, the characters are drawn or invited to a church. There, Jack's father, Dr. Christian Shepherd, explains that they have all died and come to this place that they created together because the most important part of their life was the time they spent together on the island. Now that they have found each other, they can move on. Two big glowing doors open, and they do just that. This church scene shocked many viewers who had spent 6 seasons expecting scientific or mythological explanations for the island's mysteries, and instead received what felt to many like a spiritual, afterlife-focused conclusion. Reviews from the LA Times and the Philadelphia Inquirer criticized the finale for answering so few of the series' questions. It's precisely this sense of frustrated expectation, years of questions answered not with logic, but with a glowing church and an afterlife, that the Joker mocks in Arkham City. The Joker's words may go right over the heads of those who never saw Lost to its end. However, viewers that stayed tuned through the finale likely perked up at the mention of a church. While the ending of Lost is still debated for its merit, the show definitely concludes in that location. The Lost reference in Arkham City is far from a random pop culture shoutout. It's rooted in a direct, personal, and professional connection. After leaving Warner Bros. Animation in early 2004, Dini went on to write and story edit the first season of the ABC series Lost. Dini wrote the storylines for the Batman Arkham Asylum and Batman Arkham City video games. His role was not minor. Paul Dini served as consultant and story editor on Lost for 44 episodes covering 2004 through 2006. According to the Lostpedia wiki, Paul Dini co-wrote the following episode of Lost with Jennifer Johnson, the Moth. Additionally, the Lost writers were awarded at the 2006 Writers Guild of America Awards for outstanding achievement in writing for a dramatic television series. So the man who crafted the Joker's dialogue in Arkham City had personally invested years of his career into Lost before the show concluded. Having watched it end the way it did, Dini channeled that frustration or amusement directly into the Joker's mouth. The references aren't random, nor do they necessarily come from a mere fan. Arkham City was written by Paul Dini, and the man's credits also include the role of story editor early on for Lost. But that's not all. See, the Joker's church monologue is not the only Lost reference planted in Arkham City. There's several references to Lost. One, when flying around Arkham City, an inmate asks another, "So, did they ever explain what the island was?" And later, more dialogue. "Why did it end in a church?" Players patrolling Gotham can also stumble upon random bits of dialogue from goons, trying to make sense of how the show ended. These scattered conversations among Arkham City's criminal population mirror the real-world post-finale discourse that played out on forums, social media, and around water coolers after May 23, 2010. The meta layers of this Easter egg go even deeper when you consider who voices the Joker in Arkham City. Mark Hamill, who voiced the Joker, is a huge fan of the show. This means the line, "How come it all ended in a church?" was not just written by someone personally connected to Lost, but also performed by a passionate fan of the series. The combination of Dini's insider knowledge as a former Lost staff writer and Hamill's genuine affection for the show gives the Easter egg an authentic, emotional core that goes beyond just a typical in-game joke. It's two people who genuinely cared about Lost, poking fun at an ending that left them and millions of other viewers with unanswered questions. In Arkham City, Batman could intercept hidden radio messages from Scarecrow with the cryptographic sequencer, likely created as hints towards the succeeding game, Batman Arkham Knight. The messages are not stumbled upon naturally during normal gameplay. They require the player to manually tune the sequencer to specific coordinates. If you open up your cryptographic sequencer, you can find free broadcasts from a slightly fuzzy and robotic voice saying seemingly random numbers. These numbers are actually a cipher, numeric representations of the alphabet. The broadcasts end with a chime sound before looping and repeating, giving each one a distinctively eerie, real-world number station quality. Number stations are real-world shortwave radio broadcasts used historically to send coded messages to spies and agents. The developers clearly drew on that concept for these transmissions. These numbers can be deciphered with 3 different methods, each progressively more complex than the last, escalating in difficulty across the 3 frequencies. Find the coordinates X700 Y490 on the sequencer to intercept a radio frequency that contains the following repeating numbers: 9, 23, 9, 12, 12, 18, 5, 20, 21, 18, 14, 2, 1, 20, 13, 1, 14. This cipher is a simple 1, 2, 3 equals ABC, etc. The message is decoded as "I will return, Batman." This is the most straightforward of the 3 transmissions, using a direct Caesar cipher where each number maps to its corresponding letter in the alphabet. 9 is I, 23 is W, 9 is I again, 12 is L, and so forth. The simplicity of the cipher is deliberate. It's designed so that players with no knowledge of cryptography can crack it, making it the most accessible of the three. During the events of Arkham City, Scarecrow was broadcasting free-coded messages to different radio frequencies. Each message was a sequence of numbers, each with its own cipher. One message said, "I will return, Batman." The phrase is directed personally at Batman, confirming that whoever is broadcasting is someone who has faced Batman before and been defeated. The message, "I will return," confirms that Batman has fought the transmitter of said message in the past and beaten him or her. In context, this is a declaration of survival and a promise of vengeance from Scarecrow, who had been mauled by Killer Croc at the end of Batman Arkham Asylum and was presumed by many to be dead or badly incapacitated. The second can be heard on the broadcast 500x900y and reads 5-15-9-7-21-18-18-14 3-5-24-15-12 7-22-3-5-24-15 12-7-22-3-10-5 1-9-22-3-8-25-26 15-16-25 10-15-17-25. It can be decoded in a Caesarean shift, where the alphabet is shifted down. In this case, Z equals 1, Y equals 2, X equals 3. The message reads, "You will pay for what you have done to me." This is meaningfully more complex than the first frequency. Rather than the standard A1 substitution, the alphabet is inverted, so that Z occupies the value 1, Y occupies 2, X occupies 3, and so on in reverse order. This second cipher requires the solver to recognize that the numbering system has been flipped. The message itself escalates the tone from the first. It's no longer merely a promise to return, but a direct and personal threat, confirming that the broadcaster holds a specific grudge against Batman for something that was done to them. Another message could be deciphered to read, "You will pay for what you have done to me." In Scarecrow's context, this refers to his humiliation and severe physical injury at the hands of Killer Croc beneath Arkham Asylum in the previous game. During that encounter in Arkham Asylum, Batman had lured Scarecrow into Croc's territory, resulting in Croc grabbing and dragging Scarecrow beneath the sewage water. Scarecrow survived, but this second message reveals the depth of his rage over the event. For the third message, find the coordinates X200, Y500 on the sequencer to intercept a radio frequency that contains the following repeating numbers: 3, 20, 26, 18, 26, 16, 24, 1, 11, 4, 24, 9, 3, 8, 5, 2, 12, 18, 6, 16, 7, 11, 3, 10, 17, 5, 13, 4, 21, 8. Decoding this message is even more complicated. The first two steps for this code are the same as with the previous code. First, match each number to its corresponding letter in the alphabet. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, etc. This gives the sequence CTZ, RZ, PXAK, DXICHEBLRF, PGKC, JQE, MDUH. Using an @bash cipher, A is substituted for Z, Y for B, X for C, and so on. This gives the sequence XGAIA, KCZ, PWC, RXS, VYO, IUKT, PXQ, JVN, WFS. Finally, a Vigenère cipher is used. A keyword is needed to solve the cipher, and the keyword for the code is Scarecrow. Once decoded, it reads, "Fear will tear Gotham City to shreds." The third message is by far the most cryptographically complex of the three, requiring 3 separate stages to decode: a basic number-to-letter substitution, followed by an @bash cipher, a mirror substitution where A equals Z, B equals Y, etc., and finally a Vigenère cipher, a polyalphabetic cipher that requires a keyword to solve. By using the keyword Scarecrow, the message is translated to "Fear will tear Gotham City to shreds." Due to the keyword being Scarecrow, it could be implied that Scarecrow is behind at least this message, and possibly more. The fact that the keyword required to crack the final cipher is the villain's own name is a deliberate design choice. It means that the puzzle can't be solved without knowing who sent it. This third message moves beyond personal threats and announces an overarching plan for mass terror that affects all of Gotham City, not just Batman himself. The game has many other Scarecrow references, but we'll discuss them individually later in the video. These hidden messages were the biggest indication that Scarecrow would return as a future villain after Batman Arkham Asylum. Scarecrow would indeed become the primary antagonist of the franchise's conclusion, Batman Arkham Knight, in 2015, making these free transmissions planted in a 2011 game one of the most elaborately crafted and patiently executed Easter eggs in the history of the medium. There's a very interesting and kind of poetical Easter egg in Batman Arkham City. At the end of the first episode of the Catwoman DLC, a cutscene plays where Two-Face's goons locate their boss's safe behind a painting titled Cain and Abel, the Duality of Man. In the picture, Cain is carrying his murdered brother Abel across a barren wasteland. This is the very first image the player sees when starting the Catwoman DLC content, meaning that before a single punch is thrown or a word of plot-relevant dialogue is spoken, the game has already told you exactly how it will end. The very first thing seen when launching a new game is a painting called Cain and Abel, the Duality of Man. The setting depicted in the painting, a bleak, barren wasteland, mirrors the walled-off, decayed urban wasteland of Arkham City itself, limp creating a visual and thematic rhyme between the biblical landscape and the game's physical world. The painting is displayed in Two-Face's space in the game, which is doubly appropriate. Two-Face as a character is himself defined entirely by his duality, good and evil sharing the same body, making him the ideal host for a piece of artwork that carries the word duality in its very title. Now, to properly understand the reference and to fully appreciate the weight of the Easter egg, the source material must be understood. Cain, in the Bible, Hebrew Bible, or Old Testament, is the firstborn son of Adam and Eve, who murdered his brother Abel. Cain, a farmer, became enraged when the Lord accepted the offering of his brother, a shepherd, in preference to his own. He murdered Abel and was banished by the Lord from the settled country. Cain and Abel have become enduring cultural symbols of fratricide and sibling conflict, referenced and reinterpreted across art, literature, theatre, music, and film from medieval times to modern popular culture. The specific image evoked in the painting, Cain carrying Abel's body, represents the aftermath of that murder, a moment of terrible intimacy where the killer must confront the physical reality of what he's done to someone bound to him by blood. Cain killed Abel, and for the first time in history, death occurs. And the first death in history, it's worth underlining, was a murder. This weight, the first killing in human history being committed not between enemies or strangers, but between brothers, is exactly what gives the image its power, and makes it so precisely chosen as the foreshadowing device for the ending of Arkham City. The painting is a direct reference to the end scene of Batman carrying Joker's body at the end of the game, symbolizing their opposing but symbolic roles. At the conclusion of Arkham City, the Joker dies from the effects of the Titan formula that had been poisoning his blood since the events of the previous game, Batman Arkham Asylum. Batman, who had spent the entire game working desperately to find a cure that would save both of their lives, emerges from the Monarch Theatre, somberly carrying the Joker's lifeless body in his arms. None of the Joker's gang attacks Batman when he carries Joker's body out of the theatre. They all just stand back, getting out of Batman's way, and watch, shocked. You hear his gang cheering, "Joker, Joker, Joker." When Batman carries out his body, it just stops, save for Harley, who collapses into a sobbing heap. The posture, Batman holding Joker's limp body, directly mirrors the image in the painting, where Cain bears the weight of the brother he destroyed across a wasteland. Batman fought to save him, but Joker's own evil resulted in his death, with the Dark Knight carrying his body out of his base in an echo of a portrait of Cain and Abel included within the game. In my opinion, I'd say that the comparison between the two pairs is rich and deliberately imperfect in ways that deepen the meaning. Batman and the Joker always act as foil characters, constantly in conflict but unwilling to kill each other, codependent due to their ideological similarities, and driven by their rivalry. Cain and Abel have somewhat of an inverse relationship. Despite their already existing familial bond, they're torn apart by heated competition. While Batman and the Joker both use violence to achieve opposite goals, Cain and Abel employ different means to reach the same end. In the biblical story, it's Cain, the one still alive, the one carrying the body, who's the murderer. In Arkham City, the equivalent is more morally ambiguous. Batman did not kill the Joker, yet he's haunted by the sense that he failed to save him. In the Bible, Cain killed his brother Abel, marking Cain, and forcing him to live with his horrible deed for the rest of his life. Batman and Joker have been described as yin and yang in many ways, and, like the painting, Batman is seen at the end carrying Joker's lifeless body, knowing he must now live with the guilt. The title of the painting, painting, the duality of man, also speaks directly to Two-Face's defining characteristic, but in the broader context of the game, it applies to every major pairing: Batman and Joker, good and evil, order and chaos, the desire to save and the inevitability of loss. What makes this Easter egg remarkable is not just its existence, but its placement and patience. The instance of foreshadowing occurs in the opening scene, where the first image players see is a painting of Cain and Abel. The biblical brothers mirror the final scene of the game's climax, with Cain carrying Abel in his arms, crestfallen. The painting is easily forgotten by the time the plot escalates. It might be among Batman Arkham's most obscure villain Easter eggs, but in hindsight, the connection between the pairs is obvious. As is often the case with top-tier narrative symbols, the image is so subtle and retroactively profound that the full weight of it only dawns on players after the story is over. Batman Arkham City manages to spoil its own story without even alerting the player in an impressive display of narrative symmetry. The game opens with the painting and closes with the scene the painting predicted, creating a visual bookend that the player could only fully appreciate in retrospect. The final scene of Batman carrying the Joker's body was echoed at one point in Catwoman's story. On one level, we saw a painting called The Duality of Man, showing the biblical Cain carrying the body of his brother Abel. The entire narrative arc of Arkham City, its central question of whether Batman could save the Joker, and its answer, was encoded in a single painting shown before the story had even properly begun. A few minutes back, I said that we'll be discussing more of Scarecrow's references in the game. Scarecrow had a new lair in the Industrial District, a cargo boat near Warehouse 5B in Falcone Shipping Yard. The access code to the hatch was the hardest cryptographic sequence combination in Arkham City, City of Terror, Level 5. To find it, you must go just north of the Industrial District in the harbour, and glide onto the Falcone boat west of the two cranes hanging over the water, where the first set of augmented reality challenges are located. The player must use the cryptographic sequencer to hack the door on the boat and enter City of Terror as a password to open the hatch. The cryptographic sequencer in Arkham City was an upgraded version of the tool used in Arkham Asylum, and the cryptographic sequencer V2 unlocked security panels by entering a certain code instead of a wave frequency. This particular lock is rated level 5, meaning it is the single most difficult panel cracking challenge in the entire game. The hatch may take a few tries, as the player needs to stand in the right spot with the cryptographic sequencer to crack the code to open the hatch. Notably, the lockbox can't even be seen while doing this. The invisibility of the lockbox is a crucial detail. There's no visual indicator on the boat whatsoever to suggest it can be opened. Nothing in the game actively directs the player to attempt this, making it one of the most organically hidden secrets Rocksteady ever constructed. Going inside the barge forces a first-person perspective that aids in creating an unsettling atmosphere. There are wooden boxes, crates full of cockroaches, and a man slumped over in a chair. Approaching the man and zooming in triggers a jump scare where he twitches and screams before dying. The shift into first person is significant. The entirety of Batman Arkham City is played in third person, so the sudden change in perspective when descending into the boat's hull is immediately disorienting and claustrophobic. Inside the boat, one of Joker's henchmen, Roach, is tied to a chair, surrounded by bugs illuminated by UV light. Walk closer and it will spring to life before dying. Inside Scarecrow's lair were glass tanks of live bugs. Some of the tanks were smashed. The insects were crawling on the ship. A Joker henchman was sitting in a chair at the end of the barge and was a captive for Scarecrow's tests. When zoomed in on, the henchman panicked and collapsed back into the chair. One of the bug crates is broken at the man's feet, suggesting the fear gas being used on the cockroaches leaked out and was so potent that he died from the effects. The implication is devastating. This man did not die from direct violence, but from the psychological effects of Scarecrow's updated fear toxin, which had been weaponized using the insects in the smashed crates around him. The most narratively significant item inside the boat is the shipping invoice on the wall. Next to the henchman was a shipping invoice labeled Crane 0016 from Falcone Shipping for the attention of Dr. J. Crane. The invoice listed 20 biological containment vessel type 3, as well as shipping and sundry costs that totaled $560,550. There was a customs declaration, live insects for medical research purposes. It also contained shipping notes that stated, "Jonathan, I hope you find everything to be satisfactory. Mr. Fine was very specific about the shipping details, and we have followed them to the letter. By now, you will have received the initial 15 shipments. The rest are in transit and will be with you shortly." The invoice number itself Crane 16 directly encodes Scarecrow's real surname. The name Mr. Fine in the shipping notes is also a purposeful detail. Mr. Fine is Sherman Fine, the broker, a character who buys and sells property for supervillains. On the wall to the henchman's left was an invoice that detailed shipments from Falcone Shipping to Scarecrow and mentioned the broker. The broker is referenced elsewhere in Arkham City as well, for a Riddler challenge involving his business cards found in Zaz's hideout, making his mention on this invoice a consistent thread running through the game's background world-building. The choice of insects is not incidental. Rocksteady game director Sefton Hill explained, there was a barge in Arkham City which was bringing in insects, which are one of the things that Scarecrow uses to create the fear toxin, so we were kind of hinting at the fact he hadn't been killed by Croc in the first game, that he was still out there and plotting his revenge, and taking his time about it. In Batman Arkham Asylum, Scarecrow's fear toxin was famously derived in part from organic materials gathered in his hidden underground lair beneath the asylum, which included mushrooms. The barge's shipment of live insects represents a new and more ambitious phase of Scarecrow's research. He was now sourcing biological material at scale, ordering 20 crates commercially through the Falcone shipping network, pointing to a much larger operation in development. Everything in the boat, from the password and dim lighting to the dead man, hints at Scarecrow's plan to flood Gotham with a new version of the fear gas. This hidden area effectively built up suspense and anticipation for Scarecrow's return in Batman Arkham Knight. Scarecrow's absence as a visible villain in Arkham City was itself part of the mystery, and the boat gave that absence a chilling explanation. He was not gone, he was preparing. The boat doesn't stop in isolation. On top of the bridge connecting the industrial district to Amusement Mile, Scarecrow's mask can be found in a small pile of hay. Scanning the mask solved the Riddler's riddle. If you're afraid, don't be scared to crow about it. Scarecrow also appeared to have been in contact with both the identity thief and the Riddler, as several containers of his fear gas were found in the thief's hideout, and one of the rooms in which Riddler held a challenge for Batman. Batman also found Crane's hideout, where Roach had a brief panic attack the moment Batman examined him, and then died. Crane was nowhere to be found, possibly having found a way to enter and leave Arkham City unnoticed. What makes the boat Easter egg especially remarkable is the candid story Rocksteady told about it after the fact. Sefton Hill admitted, when we did the barge in Arkham City, we were like, no one will find this, because you have to be standing in a particular place and use a gadget that there's no hint you should use. And then, like one day later, it was on YouTube, and we were like, how did that happen? Rocksteady designed the boat to be essentially undiscoverable without either extreme methodical searching or community collaboration. An invisible hatch, a maximum difficulty lock, no in-game pointer, and no reward beyond the discovery itself. And yet the internet cracked it within 24 hours of the game's release in October 2011. Batman Arkham City gives us one of the most famous Easter eggs related to his origins. Crime Alley was a small alley located behind the Monarch Theatre in Gotham City's Park Row district. Crime Alley was originally part of a fashionable theatre and cafe district. However, over the years, the district became infested with crime and corruption, which resulted in the Gothamites nicknaming the area Crime Alley. The alley became infamous for being the location where Thomas and Martha Wayne lost their lives in a mugging gone wrong, and left their only son, Bruce Wayne, an orphan and the sole heir to the vast Wayne family fortune. When Rocksteady designed Arkham City, the walled-off mega prison was built to encompass a large section of Gotham's old districts, and Crime Alley was deliberately included within those walls. Crime Alley was located behind the Monarch Theatre. It had been fenced in, likely to prevent the inmates from disturbing it, but was easily accessible to Batman. This placement is not accidental. The Monarch Theatre, the building that stands directly adjacent to where the Waynes were killed, also serves as the site of the game's climactic final confrontation with the Joker, making Park Row simultaneously the location of Batman's birth as a hero and the setting of the story's most devastating conclusion. In the alley itself, chalk outlines of Martha Wayne and Thomas Wayne's bodies marked the spot where they lost their lives. Beside the outlines were a rose, a bouquet of flowers with a note for Batman, and a Hugo Strange interview tape where he questioned Batman on the effect of the murder of his parents. Eerie sounds could also be heard, including gunshots, which added to its somber atmosphere. The note reads, "It will end where it began, Hugo Strange." The chalk outlines did not survive naturally from the night of the murders. They would have long since faded across the years. It was presumed that Strange had resketched the chalk outlines to disturb Bruce. This deliberate act reveals the calculated cruelty of Hugo Strange. He did not just allow Arkham City to passively contain the site of the Wayne's deaths, he actively staged the scene as a psychological weapon. In his preparations to enact Protocol 10 and destroy Batman, Strange devised a series of mind games in order to break the Caped Crusader. When Batman arrived in Crime Alley after being trapped within the super prison, he would find the chalk outlines of his fallen parents redrawn, a single red rose, an audio tape, and a bouquet of flowers with a card promising that it will end where it began. As Bruce knelt in mourning at the scene, he played the tape left for him by Strange, in which the Professor openly mocked Wayne and his inner turmoil, concluding by gloating that he anticipated seeing him broken. Even with this confidence in his victory, Strange never addressed Wayne as Batman, still jealously guarding the secret for himself. The Pay Your Respects achievement trophy is unlocked by standing at the stones that run with your parents' blood. Behind the Monarch Theatre lies Crime Alley, where Thomas and Martha Wayne were shot. At their chalk outlines, the player will be given a prompt to pay your respects, which will trigger an audio log from Hugo Strange while Batman kneels in remembrance of his parents. After 3 minutes, the achievement will trigger automatically. It's worth noting that different sources cite slightly different time requirements. Some cite 1 minute, others cite closer to 3, but all sources confirm the mechanic requires the player to remain still and allow Batman to kneel for a sustained period without interruption. There are 2 flowers, a white bouquet that Dr. Strange leaves, and a red rose. The player has to pay respects over the red rose, not the bouquet. The achievement itself is titled simply Pay Your Respects and awards 5 gamerscore on Xbox. This has to be one of the most heartbreaking achievements to get in any game. The music that plays during the Crime Alley scene is one of the most carefully chosen elements of the entire moment. The music played when Batman pays respects to his parents is A Rose for Respect. This music foreshadows what happens in the ending, as it takes on a whole new meaning in the end credits of Harley Quinn's Revenge. The track title itself is a direct reference to the red rose placed at the scene. Strange's macabre decoration becomes the name of the music cue that plays as Batman mourns. The game's original score was composed by Nick Arundel and Ron Fish, the same composers for Batman Arkham Asylum, who returned to write music for Arkham City. As Batman pays his respects at the spot where the Waynes had died in Crime Alley, you hear tear-jerking music and the gunshots that killed them over and over again until you get up. Not only that, there's Strange's message beforehand, which details how much fun Strange is going to have, revealing Batman's secret and watching him crumble. The layering of those repeated gunshot sounds underneath the music is a specifically engineered piece of emotional cruelty. Batman cannot kneel in silence at his parents' grave without being forced to relive the sound of their deaths, looped continuously for as long as he remains there. Crime Alley is woven into the game's systems on multiple levels beyond the achievement. One of the Riddler's riddles in the Park Row district requires Batman to find the Crime Alley signpost behind Monarch Theatre and scan it. The riddle reads, 6 legs went in and only 2 came out. Or am I? The answer to the riddle refers to the Wayne family entering the alley, Thomas, Martha, and young Bruce, with 6 legs between them, and only Bruce emerging alive with 2. It's a deeply dark puzzle that frames a family tragedy as a brain teaser, entirely in keeping with the Riddler's character. Beyond the riddle, Strange foreshadowed numerous events by saying it will end where it all began. He could have meant that Batman will die in Gotham City, the Joker would die where Bruce's parents were killed, Batman killing the Joker in a dream at Crime Alley, or the supposed death of Batman at the end of Arkham Knight. Some people believed it was a message from the developers, since the Arkham games began at Arkham Asylum, and Scarecrow revealed Batman's identity in Batman, Arkham Knight at Arkham Asylum, fulfilling the foreshadowing. On the anniversary of their deaths, Batman visits the site and leaves flowers as a memorial in tribute to them. This established Batman lore that he regularly returns to Crime Alley to honor his parents is what makes Strange's staging of the scene so particularly vicious. He's turned one of Bruce Wayne's most private and sacred rituals into a trap and a taunt. Calendar Man was one of the few violent prisoners inside Arkham City who was not a direct threat to Batman. He simply welcomed him as an old friend and, on certain holidays, reminisced about the previous crimes that he had committed. Julian Gregory Day is found imprisoned in the basement holding cell of the Solomon Wayne courthouse in the Park Row district. Before the events of the game, Calendar Man was the first criminal who inhabited the Solomon Wayne courthouse, where he would formulate elaborate murders for specific holidays. After Two-Face's imprisonment, Day was imprisoned beneath the court. His cell is enclosed behind glass, in a manner that deliberately invokes the Hannibal Lecter aesthetic from The Silence of the Lambs, and mirrors his portrayal in the Batman comic, The Long Halloween, the story that inspired much of Arkham City's tone and structure. As with The Long Halloween's nod to Dr. Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs, Arkham City continues this by betraying Calendar Man as his Lecter-like self. He sits in his cell, which is protected with a glass wall, often at the back in shadows, and only gets up to approach Batman when he tells him of his crimes on holidays. Speaking in a similar style to Dr. Lecter, Calendar Man is voiced by Maurice LaMarche. The entire system works by reading the real-world date from the console or PC system clock. The game checks the actual calendar date the hardware is set to, and delivers unique content accordingly, making the entire mechanic a real-time interaction between the player and the game's world. The Storyteller trophy is unlocked by visiting the Calendar Man on 12 specific, real-life days of the year. On each day, Calendar Man will tell the player a story of a heinous crime he'd committed on that specific day. If the player speaks with him on New Year's Day, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, April Fool's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Independence Day, the feast day of St. Roche, Labor Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas Day, Calendar Man will relate a story about a crime he committed on that specific day. The stories aren't vague or mild. They're detailed, macabre confessions, delivered with Calendar Man's characteristic calm. For every monthly holiday in Arkham City, he will tell Batman a story about how he committed some heinous crime in vivid detail as a means of celebration. The crimes include violating a restraining order by attacking a party with a flamethrower on New Year's Day, killing his victims on St. Patrick's Day by spiking their beer with snake venom, unleashing packs of dogs upon the streets with Scarecrow's fear toxin on the feast day of St. Roche, and strangling a street corner Santa Claus to death, stealing his suit, sneaking into Judge Harkness's Christmas party, and killing Harkness by hanging him with Christmas lights. Unlike previous interpretations of Calendar Man, whose crimes consisted of everything but murder, this version reveals to Batman many of his crimes had resulted in murder. He even confesses to murdering his own mother and father on their respective holidays. Outside his cell, a calendar is mounted on the wall. For each visit, when the player returns, they will see that each date has been completed and has been crossed out on the calendar outside Calendar Man's cell. Once all of the dates have been completed, the achievement will unlock, and Calendar Man will disappear from his cell and replace himself with a hanging member of Two-Face's gang. Players quickly discovered they didn't need to wait an entire calendar year to complete the achievement. By going offline and changing the console or PC's internal clock to each of the required dates, they could trigger all 12 dialogues in a single sitting. This can still be accomplished by going offline and changing the date in the console's internal systems, though be advised that it runs the risk of corrupting the save file if the game itself is not closed in between each change. However, a complication arose with holidays that fall on a different calendar date each year. Some of the holidays on the list change their dates each year, meaning that the achievement is broken if attempted naturally. Specifically, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Labor Day, and Thanksgiving all shift dates from year to year since they fall on specific days of the week rather than fixed calendar dates. This means that if a player tried to visit Calendar Man on the correct day in a year after the game's 2011 release, without knowing the exact floating date for that year, the game might not register the visit. Players found that setting the year to 2012 for most dates, the first full year after the game's October 2011 release, aligned all the floating holidays correctly with the in-game calendar data. Mother's Day is the second Sunday of May, Father's Day is the third Sunday of June, Labor Day is the first Monday of September, and Thanksgiving is the fourth Thursday of November. When triggered correctly, Calendar Man will stand up, walk towards the glass, and give dialogue about a crime he committed on that date. When he finishes, he'll back up and sit on his cot. Beyond the 12 holiday dialogues, Rocksteady embedded one additional hidden date that was not part of the official Storyteller achievement and was unknown to the public for 3 full years after the game's release. Setting the console or PC date to December 13th, 2004, and visiting Calendar Man results in special dialogue. The date is when Rocksteady Studios was founded. The discovery of this secret came about through an unusual chain of events. A recent YouTube video from the channel Batman Arkham Videos revealed a secret message in Arkham City that not only went undiscovered for 3 years, but required developer intervention to discover. Turns out, if you set your Xbox 360, PS3 or PC's clock to December 13th, 2004, the day Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker founded Rocksteady, you'll trigger a unique monologue from Calendar Man. After talking about how he's been there from the beginning, the date-obsessed villain warned that the end of days is coming. The discovery process itself was a detective story. A group, known only as JG Jaw, posted a video on YouTube that featured never-before-heard dialogue when Batman speaks to Calendar Man in Batman Arkham City that starts to go silent as the video rolls on. Several days after the cryptic video, Batman Arkham Videos activated their detective vision and uncovered the mystery by setting their equipment at various dates. The name JG Jaw was itself a hidden clue. JG stands for Julian Gregory, and jour is the French word for day, spelling out Julian Gregory Day across the channel name. Calendar Man goes on to talk about his history with Batman, mirroring Rocksteady's own past with the character. The full dialogue includes, "Do you remember my early work? Flawed, but it showed promise. Just like you, as your skills improved, I perfected mine. And, starting with seasons and moving through the weeks, I became stronger. My work is more elaborate. Days were the secret, Batman, and the end of days is coming." The content of Calendar Man's secret speech operates on two simultaneous levels. If visited on December 13th, 2004, Calendar Man will be pleased at Batman visiting him on such a specific date. He will remark on how both of their careers started flawed and rough, but with promise, perfecting their skills as time passed. Finally, he cryptically warns Batman that as he was there at the Dark Knight's beginning, he will be there at your end. The remark about starting flawed but showing promise may also reference Rocksteady's unremarkable start in the industry, with Urban Chaos, Riot Response, before they developed the Arkham games and became far more famous than they'd once been. If the player sets the date of the gaming console to December 13th, 2004, the date Arkham developer Rocksteady Studios was founded, hidden inside a 2011 game and undiscovered until November 2014, proved to be genuine foreshadowing. His dialogue during this meeting foreshadowed the ending of Batman Arkham Knight. True to his promise, Calendar Man does indeed appear at the end of Arkham Knight, witnessed silently among the crowd of reporters and citizens, watching the apparent destruction of Wayne Manor and the end of Batman, fulfilling the cryptic pledge he made to Bruce Wayne years before, hidden inside a date almost no one would think to check. Jack Ryder appears as a supporting character in the Batman Arkham franchise, voiced by James Horan. In the world of Arkham City, Ryder is Gotham City's most prominent television reporter and a politically aggressive investigative journalist. When Jack Ryder heard about Hugo Strange's plan to construct Arkham City, he began to look into Strange's past activities. During Bruce Wayne's press conference advocating the closure of Arkham City, the Tiger Strike team, under the orders of Hugo Strange, attacked the rally and threw Wayne into Arkham City alongside Ryder. This means Ryder shares the exact same entry point into the prison as Bruce Wayne, both thrown in together during the same brutal assault at the very opening of the game. Upon being thrown in, Ryder says to Bruce Wayne, "Bruce Wayne, great, here I was reporting on your crummy press conference, and now here we both are. I guess that'll teach you to get involved in politics." Bruce Wayne tells him, "Listen to me carefully. When they open the door, do not panic. Stay close to me." Ryder replies, "You think I'm taking advice from some guy who's never even been in a fight?" This exchange perfectly establishes his character, self-assured, sarcastic, and oblivious to the fact that he's standing next to the Batman himself. The political prisoners were people who were arrested by Hugo Strange for knowing too much about Arkham City or for being a danger to his plans. Some people became political prisoners because they objected to the idea of Arkham City, while others deliberately got themselves thrown in the prison city to uncover more about it, such as Jack Ryder. Before the Deadshot storyline formally intersects with Ryder, the player can encounter him in 3 separate optional moments scattered across Arkham City. Before the completion of the A Shot in the Dark submission, Jack Ryder can be randomly encountered by the player in 3 different situations. The encounters are not necessary for the completion of the game, but the first of the 3 is at the border between Park Row and the Bowery, where Ryder is hiding in an alley and claims to be investigating. The next encounter is outside the Amusement Mill political prisoner camp, where Ryder is trying to get in, and the last one is in Park Row, where he's being attacked by two-faced thugs and must be saved by Batman. As Ryder himself was jumped and brutally beaten by an inmate, the other political prisoner tripped over from the impact. Bruce helped Ryder up, only to be clubbed to the ground. Sometime later, Ryder was attacked by several other inmates and interrogated to find out where Bruce Wayne was hiding. After Batman defeated them, Ryder hid in an alleyway nearby. He told Batman he was looking into Hugo Strange's suspicious activities. These encounters flesh out Ryder as a stubborn, courageous reporter who refuses to simply accept his imprisonment and instead continues trying to investigate, even while under constant physical danger from the inmates around him. Ryder's connection to the Shot in the Dark side mission is the most significant and dangerous part of his time in Arkham City. The mission begins when Batman discovers a series of sniper killings of political prisoners, people who had worked for Hugo Strange and knew too much about his operations. After finding the correct substation that Deadshot was using to hide his equipment, and a PDA, which is heavily encrypted, Batman can bypass the security. Batman realizes that the PDA was given to Deadshot by Hugo Strange, and that he was smuggled into the city to take out a specific list of threats to Strange's position, and sees that Deadshot only has three targets left: TV reporter Jack Ryder, billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne, and the Batman. Batman realizes Deadshot is working on a schedule and that Ryder is next. The discovery creates an immediate time-based emergency. The bad news is that reporter Jack Ryder is the next target, and you only have 3 minutes to save him. When Batman arrives, he finds Ryder warming himself at a burning trash can. Batman runs over and tackles him, causing Deadshot to miss and seriously anger the assassin. The fact that Ryder is on Deadshot's list alongside Bruce Wayne and Batman himself underscores how seriously Strange viewed the reporter as a threat. His investigative journalism into Strange's activities made him just as dangerous to the villain's plans as Gotham's most powerful vigilante. Once Batman saves Ryder from the attempted assassination, Ryder's location in the game world changes permanently. Batman eventually saved Ryder from Deadshot and the terror of Arkham, and put Ryder in the old Gotham Cathedral, which was being used as a medical center in Arkham. He went to the church for safety, hoping to get out of Arkham City to tell the world what Strange did inside. Jack was later present at the cathedral when a mob of inmates attempted to break into the cathedral to get their hands on Sharp, but Azrael saved everyone at the church from the inmates and Bane. While sheltering at the church, Ryder provides dialogue to Batman that reveals his ongoing determination, despite everything he's endured, to get out and expose the truth about Arkham City. After saving Ryder the first time, you notice the cuts and wounds on his face from the inmates, but when he retreated to the church medical center after Deadshot's failed assassination attempt, they were noticeably gone. This was most likely due to Ryder's healing factor. This is one of the game's subtle nods to Ryder's connection to his comic book alter ego. His wounds vanish between encounters in a way that has no ordinary explanation. Ryder's presence in Arkham City carries an undercurrent of DC Comics mythology that the game carefully hints at without ever confirming. In the comics, the Creeper is a superpowered alter ego of Jack Ryder, and his costume is bright yellow and red. In Arkham City, an interview between Vicky Vale and Mayor Quincy Sharp about active vigilantes indicates that the Creeper is active in Gotham, but Ryder is not established to be the Creeper in this game, or any of the others. His billboard is brightly coloured in the Creeper's yellow and red, and his portrait in Arkham Asylum shows him in a suit of the same colours. It was unknown if Ryder would turn into his alter ego, the Creeper, though it did state that he could in his Arkham Asylum bio, and it was cited in a conversation between Vicky Vale and Mayor Quincy Sharp. If he is the Creeper, the dangers of Arkham City would not be substantial for him. The Creeper has a healing factor that makes him virtually immortal, among other powers. This might even make him immune to Deadshot's assassination attempts. However, he does not behave accordingly, being as terrified as any of the other political prisoners, even under duress and threats to his life. He may be unaware. Ryder's experiences inside Arkham City didn't end with his escape. Ryder published an article about his run-in with Deadshot in Arkham City. The article was heavily embellished. Ryder claimed that not only did he take down Deadshot with help from Batman, but also saved him from a sniper shot from Deadshot. Before the Arkham City Commission, Ryder testified to the horrors of the brutality the prisoners suffered during the night he was trapped behind its walls. His testimony, at least in part, led to the release of many prisoners, a fact that many Gotham citizens blame on Ryder, thus incurring numerous hate mail. The embellishment in his published article reveals a key character trait. Ryder's ego and ambition as a journalist led him to inflate his role in the events, turning his rescue into a story in which he was partially the hero. This inconsistency between Ryder's bravado and the reality of his helplessness during those events is one of the game's funny character details. He doesn't appear to like Vicky Vale, claiming that he wanted to get out of Arkham to make sure she didn't steal his spot as the top reporter. In Arkham City, he bears a striking resemblance to fake news pundit and comedian Stephen Colbert. Throughout his entire arc in the game, from being thrown in alongside Bruce Wayne, to his 3 random encounters, to his near assassination by Deadshot, to his shelter at the church, to his embellished post-escape article, Ryder functions as both a genuine victim of Hugo Strange's authoritarian overreach and a satirical portrait of the self-aggrandizing media personality who can't resist making himself the story. Did you know, the early development of the Titan formula in the Batman Arkham series, originally established in Arkham Asylum and carried into the narrative of Arkham City, featured drastically different concept designs that leaned into spider-like and body horror aesthetics. Artist Carlos D'Anda initially envisioned Titan-infected subjects, specifically the Joker, as disjointed, messed-up monsters, resembling something out of an Aphex Twin music video, rather than the traditional, muscular behemoths seen in the final games. These beta designs focused on grotesque disfigurement, such as torn and scarred mouths, and a more sickly, emaciated appearance that hinted at the physiological toll the drug would eventually take in the form of the Titan disease. In the early stages of production, the transformation process itself was intended to be far more violent and mechanical in nature. Initial models for Titan henchmen featured metal bursting through the skin as the body mutated, a detail that was ultimately replaced by the protruding bone structures and exposed spinal columns found in the final version. Furthermore, the developers originally planned to use Arkham lunatics as the primary subjects for Titan injection, rather than the Blackgate prisoners or Arkham guards used in the final game. This suggests that the early concept of the drug didn't necessarily aim to destroy the subject's mentality, as the lunatics were already mentally unstable before the transformation. The visual direction for the Titan infected was originally much more horrific and beast-like, to match the dark, oppressive atmosphere intended for the series. For instance, early concept art for the Titan Joker featured him wearing a mad scientist outfit to complement Harley Quinn's original nurse ensemble, but this was scrapped for a more traditional look to avoid visual overlap with the Joker's appearance in the Dark Knight film. The final muscular monster design was a result of the team being forced to make the creatures look more like powerful tanks to better serve the gameplay mechanics of the boss fights, moving away from the more unsettling, skeletal horror of the beta concepts. Even in the final version of Arkham City, remnants of these early monstrous ideas persist through the environmental storytelling and the physical degeneration of the characters. The Titan-infected henchmen are depicted with grotesque facial disfigurements and animalistic behaviors, losing all capacity for human speech and instead communicating through roars and snorts. The Titan disease that plagues the Joker is a direct narrative consequence of this early design philosophy, showing a sickly version of the character that mirrors the emaciated, monstrous qualities seen in the original development sketches. There's a very cool hidden detail in the game that I'm sure many of you might have left unnoticed. In Batman Arkham City, Rocksteady Studios included multiple references to their real-world development team by integrating their names and likeness into the prison district's high-security environment. One of the most prominent examples of this is found within the Gotham City Police Department building. Inside, players can locate a flyer or official list detailing recently arrested individuals. This document includes the names of several actual Rocksteady developers, specifically Joshua Dardre, David Tyndale, David Higgins, Jigar Patel, Noel Chamberlain, and Johnny Armstrong. Beyond just names on lists, the game features visual representations of the team through wanted posters scattered throughout the GCPD facility. These posters display faces that are based on real staff members who worked on the game's development. This practice of using developer photos as in-game assets was a continuation of a tradition started in the previous title, where photos of the crew were used for background patient files found in various locations, like the penitentiary. In that game, art director David Hago was even explicitly referenced by name by an inmate. In addition to the official GCPD documents, the development team's presence is woven into the architecture and commerce of the city itself. Several storefronts and signs in the Arkham City district are named after staff members. For instance, players can find Rocksteady developer stores, where the shop names serve as nods to the individuals who built the game world. This integration ensures that the team is represented not just as patients or criminals, but as part of the foundational fabric of the setting. Out of many cut content, Batman Arkham City has one that might have taken us back in time. I'm talking like in the 60s. In the game, the inclusion of Tiny, Penguin's massive great white shark, was originally intended to lead to a direct, humorous homage to the 1966 Batman film starring Adam West. While the cinematic spray gadget itself was ultimately cut from the final gameplay, several verified details and remnants of this plan exist within the game's code and final release. Rocksteady developers initially prototyped a unique animation specifically for New Game Plus mode. In this scrapped version of the encounter in the Cyrus Pinckney Museum, Batman would have reached into a compartment on his utility belt explicitly labeled shark repellent. Instead of a liquid spray, he would have pulled out brass knuckles to beat Tiny back, a grounded Arkhamverse twist on the campy 1966 gadget. This sequence was intended to surprise returning players, but was ultimately replaced by the standard punch-based QTE found in the first playthrough. The most direct reference remaining in the game is a non-diegetic hint that appears if the player is killed by Tiny. If you allow the shark to destroy Batman's raft and drag him underwater during the museum segment, the game over screen displays a snarky tip. Fight off the shark using Batman's powerful shark repellent, a flurry of furious strikes. This confirms that even after cutting the physical gadget, the developers wanted to acknowledge the fan-favorite 1966 reference. There is a second, often missed reference found within the Riddler's lair. If Batman sneaks into the lair and listens to the Riddler talking to himself, Edward Nygma can be heard brainstorming potential death traps. He briefly considers stealing Tiny from the Penguin to use against Batman, but immediately dismisses the idea, muttering that Batman probably has some sort of shark repellent anyway. The entire Tiny encounter is built around the legacy of the oceanic repellent bat spray, first popularized in the 1966 movie, where Batman uses shark repellent bat spray to fight off an exploding shark while hanging from a Batcopter ladder. By placing a great white in a museum and providing a hint screen about repellent, Rocksteady effectively turned one of Batman's most parodied moments into a tense, atmospheric boss encounter that still maintains a nod to the character's campier history. We all know that the Arkhamverse Batman games have had many crazy fan theories, and the fans have been quite creative with their stories. One of my personal favourites for Arkham City is the fear gas hallucination theory. This theory was developed by the game's community in the years following its release. The theory proposes that at some point during the game, most likely during Batman's early exposure to Stranger's protocols or during one of the Scarecrow-adjacent sequences, Batman is subjected to a dose of Scarecrow's fear toxin, and that the entirety or a large portion of Arkham City's narrative is a chemically induced hallucination playing out in Batman's mind while his body remains incapacitated somewhere in Gotham or within Arkham City itself. Fans who support this theory draw heavily on the precedent already established within the Arkham game series, specifically pointing to the Scarecrow nightmare sequences in Batman Arkham Asylum, where fear toxin created full, gameplay-length hallucinations that Batman experienced as entirely real, complete with distorted environments, impossible architecture, and deeply personal psychological torment. The fact that Rocksteady had already canonically demonstrated that Scarecrow's gas could create sustained, interactive feeling hallucinations gave the fan community a genuine, lore-consistent foundation upon which to build this theory for Arkham City. Supporters of this theory point to several specific moments within Batman Arkham City as potential evidence. The most frequently cited is the Mad Hatter's side quest titled A Serial Killer, in which Jervis Tetch drugs Batman with a tea-laced hallucinogen and traps him in an elaborate Alice in Wonderland-themed delusion. During this sequence, Batman experiences a vivid, completely convincing alternate reality, complete with distorted physics, warped enemies in top hats, and surreal environmental design, all while being physically sedated in a chair in Tetch's lair. Fans argue this moment is Rocksteady deliberately signposting that Batman is, within the world of Arkham City, a character who is highly vulnerable to hallucinogenic compounds, and who's already demonstrated that he can't always distinguish an induced hallucination from reality mid-experience. Another piece of evidence cited is the Protocol 10 sequence and Hugo Strange's broader plan. Fans note that Strange, who has extensive knowledge of psychology and Batman's identity, would be uniquely positioned to craft a fear gas scenario tailored specifically to Bruce Wayne's deepest anxieties: the death of innocence, the failure of his mission, the corruption of Gotham and his own mortality, the fact that Batman is poisoned by the Joker's blood early in the game, a plot point involving a contained strain of Titan, and spends much of the narrative in a physically deteriorating state is also cited, as fans argue a man weakened by a spreading blood toxin would be far more susceptible to a secondary hallucinogenic compound going undetected. The single most discussed element that fuels the fear gas hallucination theory is the death of Joker at the end of Arkham City. In the game's climax, Ra's al Ghul's Lazarus Pit cure is destroyed. Batman refuses to let Joker die, but is stabbed and drops the cure, and Joker dies from his illness on the floor of the Monarch Theatre, with Batman carrying his body out of Arkham City. Fans who subscribe to the hallucination theory argue that the Joker dying is simply too narratively extreme and too permanent to be accepted at face value within the context of the Batman story, and that within the logic of a fear gas hallucination, the death of one's greatest enemy would represent exactly the kind of catastrophic, world-altering psychological event that Scarecrow's toxin specializes in manufacturing. These fans argue that Batman's deepest fear is not spiders or fire, but failure. The failure to save someone, even someone like the Joker, and a hallucination engineered by Scarecrow would naturally culminate in a scenario where Batman is forced to watch the Joker die while holding the very cure that could have saved him. The staging of the Joker's death scene, with Batman carrying the corpse out into the snow while only you by the Platters plays, is noted by Fury supporters as almost too cinematic and symbolic to be an organic story beat, reading instead like the kind of emotionally loaded, stylized imagery that the brain manufactures under the influence of a powerful, psychoactive compound. While Scarecrow doesn't appear as a primary villain in Batman Arkham City, his role is largely saved for Batman Arkham Knight. His presence is felt throughout the Arkham series as a character who operates in the background, planning and observing. Fans who support this theory argue that Scarecrow's absence from Arkham City is itself suspicious and could be interpreted as evidence that he's operating off-screen, having already deployed his toxin against Batman at some point prior to or during the game's opening. In Arkham Asylum, Scarecrow's fear toxin sequences were triggered unexpectedly and without warning. Batman didn't know he'd been dosed until the hallucination had already fully taken hold, and fans argue the same methodology could apply in Arkham City, with the dosing occurring at a moment the player isn't shown, perhaps during the chaos of Batman's initial arrest and processing into Arkham City under Hugo Strange's orders. The theory also draws a thematic connection between Strange and the Scarecrow, noting that both characters are defined by psychological manipulation, an academic understanding of fear, and a clinical approach to breaking their subjects mentally rather than physically. Some versions of the theory suggest that Strange and Scarecrow collaborated, that Strange, knowing Batman would be entering Arkham City, arranged for a fear toxin dispersal as a contingency, ensuring that even if Batman survived Protocol 10, he would be psychologically destroyed from within. It's important to note that the fear gas hallucination theory is entirely fan-constructed and is not supported or confirmed by any official Rocksteady statement, developer commentary, or in-game text. The game presents its narrative, including the Joker's death, as real, diegetic events within the Arkham continuity, and Batman Arkham Knight subsequently treats the Joker's death as a confirmed, canonical event by building its entire narrative around Batman's psychological trauma following the loss, and around the Joker's presence as a hallucinatory figure within Bruce's own deteriorating mind. This is the sharpest counter-argument to the theory. If Arkham City itself were a hallucination, Arkham Knight's framing of the Joker as a haunting memory and fear toxin-induced vision would lose its dramatic and logical foundation. Additionally, the game contains an enormous amount of densely interconnected narrative detail, from the political context of Arkham City's creation under Mayor Quincy Sharp, to the paper trail of Hugo Strange's communications with Ra's al Ghul, to the individual stories of dozens of side characters, that would represent an implausibly elaborate hallucination even by Scarecrow's standards. The theory, while creative and thoughtfully assembled by fans, ultimately functions more as an interpretive lens for processing the game's more extreme narrative beats than as a legitimate alternative reading supported by the text of the game itself. In Batman Arkham City, side missions were meticulously crafted by veteran comic author as standalone subplots that exist independently of the main narrative. Unlike simple fetch quests, these missions use specialized gameplay mechanics to explore the backstories and motivations of Gotham's most dangerous criminals. They serve as mini-stories that provide deep lore, character development, and unique rewards that often carry over into the endgame. Each side mission functions as a distinct narrative arc with its own set of objectives and thematic focus. For instance, the Cold Call Killer mission featuring Victor Zsasz is structured around high-stakes phone calls that force Batman to race across the city. As the mission progresses, Zsasz reveals his disturbing origin story, providing a psychological depth that doesn't fit within the main plot. Similarly, the Watcher in the Wings mission introduces Azrael, who delivers a haunting prophecy about the future of Gotham, effectively bridging the lore between Arkham City and its sequel, Arkham Knight. Many side missions prioritize Batman's world's greatest detective persona. In Identity Theft, players investigate crime scenes with bandaged victims to uncover the identity of a killer mimicking Bruce Wayne, eventually revealing Dr. Thomas Elliot or Hush in a standalone confrontation. Shot in the Dark utilizes ballistic forensics to track Deadshot, who's systematically executing political prisoners and individuals with incriminating evidence against Hugo Strange. These missions expand the prison's ecosystem, showing how various villains operate in the chaos of Arkham City. Black Mask has many different references in Batman Arkham City, City that are very fun to find out. The first one is in the opening scene. As Bruce Wayne is entering Arkham City, he can witness Black Mask by looking to the left of the entrance. There, he's resisting two tiger guards, who eventually subdue and beat the crime lord. This brief but memorable appearance sets the tone for Black Mask's role in the game, humiliating and powerless. Sionis appears in the opening, comically fending off a bunch of tiger guards with a chair, before being tased and kicked repeatedly on the ground. It's an intentionally comedic moment that the developers at Rocksteady used to establish Black Mask as a figure whose fierce reputation far exceeds his in-game power. The location where this takes place is the Arkham City Processing Center, and this scene is permanently available for players to observe during Bruce Wayne's intake sequence at the very start of the game. The Riddler's connection is the most elaborate and lore-rich of all the Black Mask Easter eggs in the game. Roman Sionis, aka Black Mask, is the first and only inmate to have escaped from Arkham City. Using explosives stolen from the Penguin, he waited until the Tiger Shift change, blasted his way through the containment wall, and went on the run in Gotham City. Furious, Hugo Strange ordered his Tiger operatives onto the streets to focus all their attention on finding Black Mask, who was finally recaptured after a violent siege at the meatpacking plant he owned. Promising that no one else would ever escape again, Strange fitted a series of automated machine guns to the walls of Arkham City, designed to kill anyone else who dared to try. The physical location of this escape is discoverable in-game as part of the Riddler's challenge system. The riddle reads, "Did you hear the whole story of how Black Mask escaped?" and is located in the Industrial District. Players must go to the markers south of the steel mill and scan the big hole in the wall that's been barricaded there to solve it. The hole is now boarded up with signs warning other prisoners to get back. When you find it and scan it, you unlock the story of how Black Mask was the only prisoner to ever escape Arkham City. The riddle's pun on hole versus hole is a signature Riddler wordplay moment, doubling as an in-universe lore drop about events that occurred before Batman entered Arkham City. The area where Black Mask resists the Tiger Guards is also shown via this hole in the building from which he escaped, and it's where Sionis Industries was owned. This connects the geography of the prison back to Roman Sionis' pre-Arkham City criminal history, grounding the Easter egg in the fiction of the game world. In the museum, his wooden mask can be seen in a display case. The Penguin's Museum, which serves as one of the game's major locations, contains a large collection of trophies and memorabilia related to Gotham's criminal underworld. Black Mask's iconic wooden mask, the one carved from his father's black coffin, appears here as one of the Penguin's collectibles. This is a significant Easter egg because it reinforces the Penguin's role as an obsessive collector of criminal artifacts, while also reminding the player of the real Black Mask who's lurking somewhere within Arkham City's walls. The mask being on display while Sionis himself is still alive and active inside the prison adds a layer of dark irony. The Penguin essentially stole and showcased the defining symbol of Black Mask's identity. While not hidden in the same way as other Easter eggs, Black Mask's appearance at the Solomon Wayne courthouse is a significant lore moment that many players miss if they focus only on the main story. That same night, Two-Face conducted his own version of a trial at the Solomon Wayne courthouse, with Joker as the defendant. Black Mask showed up as both a witness and a juror, testifying to how he lost the Sionis steel mill to Joker, who had stolen it from under him. Black Mask became overly passionate about his accusations, forcing Two-Face to order him to sit down. When Batman interrupted the proceedings to stop Joker's execution, Black Mask was one of many who attempted to kill the Batman. Batman eventually knocked him down, allowing both him and the Joker to escape. This moment subtly communicates to the observant player just how deeply the Joker had humiliated and dispossessed Black Mask, to the point where Sionis was willing to risk his own safety just to publicly accuse the Clown Prince of crime in a kangaroo court. Moreover, if players head to the rear of Joker's steel mill, which was actually the Sionis steel mill before the Clown Prince moved in, they can spot a tunnel that's been boarded up. Scanning it reveals the story of Black Mask's escape and eventual recapture, which led up to him being processed at the beginning of Batman Arkham City's story timeline. The entire steel mill location, which is one of the central gameplay areas in the game, is itself a layered Easter egg and lore detail for Black Mask. The building formerly belonged to Roman Sionis, and Joker's hostile takeover of it is a humiliation that Black Mask explicitly mentions during his courthouse testimony. The fact that Batman spends so much time inside what used to be Black Mask's property, while Sionis himself is reduced to a minor figure in the background, adds a tragic and ironic dimension to the setting that rewards players who who pay attention to the game's lore. To end the video, I'd like to mention some Easter eggs and secrets that were too short to be explained individually in the video. The creators of the video game wanted to help make their Batman game feel like it existed in the Batman universe. To do this, the creators not only populated Arkham City with Batman's villains and iconic Gotham locations, but they also included hints and Easter eggs to other interpretations of the Batman mythos. Throughout the game, players can see several big Cheshire cat heads scattered around the city. This is a nod to Batman Returns, with Max Shrek's department store having a similar Cheshire cat head mascot. Additionally, some of the downloadable costumes for the playable characters are ripped straight out of previous popular incarnations of the Dark Knight's Crusades. Arkham Asylum was a tight and well-structured game. The story was set in the asylum, so while still a large map, it was small in comparison to the other games. However, Arkham City's map is over 5 times the size of the map in Arkham Asylum, since it encompasses a major part of Gotham City, rather than isolating the action to a single building. As a result, Rocksteady had to expand from its then 75-strong team to a team consisting of roughly 100 employees. This allowed the team to sufficiently create the incredible world of Arkham City. As with any property, Arkham City wasn't written and completed in a bubble. This means that the game has influences from across the media world, whether it be other video games, movies, TV, or even music. One notable influence is John Carpenter's Escape from New York, the concept of which is that Manhattan Island has been walled off into a giant prison. The movie, in turn, could also be said to have inspired the No Man's Land arc in the comics, where Gotham City is walled off from the rest of America following a massive earthquake. This saga also had a clear influence on Arkham City. Harley Quinn found her beginnings in the seminal Batman the Animated Series, with writer Paul Dini initially only expecting her to feature in one episode as one of the Joker's goons. However, Harley proved so popular that she would return again and again, even entering the DC universe itself before receiving her own standalone episodes, comics, movies, and TV series. Up until Arkham City, Harley Quinn had been voiced by the original actress, Arlene Sorkin. However, for the release of this game, the role instead went to Tara Strong, marking the first time the role has been played by someone other than Sorkin. The reason for this was that Sorkin decided to retire from the role of Harley when Arkham Asylum was completed. The Batmobile is one of the most iconic elements of Batman's character. Not only is it a mode of transport, but as Arkham Knight would go on to show to an overbearing degree, it's also a tool in Batman's war on crime. While initially considering the Batmobile in the game, the developers would go on to opt against the vehicle. They believed that the rough terrain of Arkham City wouldn't work well with the car. Robin has a reputation for being a bit of a light-hearted character since he's Batman's sidekick. While this isn't necessarily true in the comics, this has become the case, due in part to the various mainstream adaptations. After all, Robin is still the boy wonder, and is usually only taken seriously after he becomes Nightwing. So when it came time to introduce their Robin, Rocksteady wanted to make sure this was a gritty Robin like never seen before. Robin, or Tim Drake here, has a shaved head that was inspired by cave fighters, with darker tones across the costume. Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill have been voicing Batman and the Joker for so long that they've become intertwined with the characters themselves, being seen as archetypes of their respective characters among fans. As a result, production team was more than willing to change elements of their dialogue if the actor disagreed with the lines. Mark Hamill would often get so into the character that he would just go off on tangents or ad-lib, so the developers had to change elements of the Joker's story and dialogue to keep up with this. The cinematic nature of games has become more and more prevalent as the gaming industry continues to grow. Even in 2011, when Arkham City was released, there had to be a certain level of Hollywood in the design and execution of the game. Fortunately for Rocksteady, they had Warner Bros. Connections to use when building their game. In addition to using Warner Bros. World-class Foley artists, the developers were also able to use the Warner Bros. Lot to shoot guns and perfectly capture the sound and design of the weaponry. And that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're still awake, I suggest you watch 2 hours of Batman Arkham Games Facts video that's on your screen right now. Click it, and I'll see you there.